Welcome to PhD with Women on IT Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by Dr. Karin Jakubowski. Today's topic is making a difference with passion. Episode 39 starts here in Proroš in Slovenia, where I join beautiful culture and beautiful nature of European Union passion for SMEs at SME Assembly 2021. It's a first meeting that we were able to join in person after the pandemic. Our last meeting we had in 2019, so it was good to see these people still passionate about European Union startups and new economy post-COVID. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you're making a difference with a passion. Karin, where in the world are you today?
Hello, I am in Delaware on the East Coast in the United States.
Fabulous to hear. You're looking pretty, and today's discussion is actually not being live, but it's being recorded because I will be flying back to sunny or not so sunny as the case might be today, Malta. So let's face it, what is your passion? Can we really define it? A simple question, but often difficult to answer. Finding one's passion doesn't always come to someone easily. Some people go through several challenges before they discover their love for something. Once you find that passion for something, what's next? There is a desire to make a difference in other people's life, just like our guest, Karin Jakubowski. She has found her passion and is presently doing her part in making a difference in other people's lives, particularly in the lives of children. Dr. Karin currently is the host of Momnificent podcast, is a well-respected international influencer on helping kids live healthier lives. With a doctorate in educational leadership, beautiful music in the background, she has nearly 2 years of experience in education and is highly regarded as an educational game changer. Her insights have been featured in various media outlets, including the Washington Times and Delaware State News. So, Karin, how did you start defining your passion? What was the root for that?
You know, Beata, so when I was a little kid, I would sit in my bedroom and set up my stuffed animals with a little chalkboard, and I would I'm just checking this. So I would start teaching to my stuffed animals. So at a young age, I actually thought and knew that I wanted to be a teacher. But when I was in Bible school after high school, I worked part-time at a hotel where there were tons of engineers and lawyers who came in, and they made a ton of money. And they would ask me what I was studying, and I would make it up. I literally would say, I want to be an engineer. And they would tell me all the pros and cons. And then they would tell me, then I would say, like, I want to be a lawyer. And they would tell me all the pros and cons. And I would just sit there and reflect because I grew up not having a lot. And so on one hand, I was like, I want to be rich. I want to have what I never had. And so I thought for a period of time, maybe I'll become a lawyer. Maybe I'll become an engineer. But then through the next couple of summers, I ended up working in the business office of the hotel. And I would sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, typing contracts, answering the phone call. And I realized that I was not created to sit behind a computer for 8 hours a day. And when I would fast forward to the end of my life and think of looking back, I would say to myself, what did I do all of that for? For who? For what? What did it leave in the world? And so I actually had an opportunity to volunteer in a first grade class in a private school at my church. And I was like, sure, I'll just jump in. I had an hour or two a week I could help out. And it was a teacher who walked by one day who said, you're really good with kids. And I was like, I am? I'm just kind of doing my thing. Like I just did it. No, I didn't have any formal training at that point. But I realized that I really loved working with kids. And it kind of something came naturally for me connecting with them. So then I decided to go to school. So I actually went for my master's degree at night and started working at a private school. And I would learn at night. I would put into practice in the daytime. And you know what, Beata? So I was a teacher for about 6 years. And in that time, it was so I literally found my passion of helping kids because it was an opportunity to give back and instill in them lessons, tools, learnings, helping them see themselves to become something more than maybe who they saw themselves at that moment. And when I thought of what I would be at the end of my life, for me, it was giving back to others and that feeling of like giving and taking and making a difference, because there were so many influential teachers that I had growing up that I knew helped form me to be the person that I was today. And I wanted to have that influence and that opportunity to inspire, help, support, encourage kids if I could leave that in them.
And so it's a great opportunity for me now to come with this great quotation. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. Harriet Tubman. So we know about your passion to change the world through education. But let's start with a basic question. What is the best definition of passion? Could you teach us?
Passion is going within inside yourself and thinking to yourself what gets you the most excited. Not what society tells you you should or shouldn't be doing, not what your parents think you should or shouldn't be doing, but who are you when all is quiet and you are by yourself? What is something that makes you smile? What is something that gives you energy? Because all day long, people are doing things and their work, and it's not what they actually want to be doing. And so it's really just taking a step back from all the feedback of our society and world that we live in, and whatever your world has created for you that you are sitting in looking at today. And I think that's what COVID did for us, truly, Beata. It really had us step back and really see and think and reflect. Am I doing what I want to do inside me? What makes me happy? Passion is the thing that inside you gives you that energy. So if you're going to a work job every day and you're not energetic and you're not inspired and you're not happy, I question whether you're pursuing your passion.
Fantastic. I think I might have a little problem with network. It must be all this cohort from European Union sucking up the network here. And I know you're busy switching off the phone, so maybe you take this opportunity and turn off your devices while I bring you another quotation. It is obvious that we can no more explain a passion to a person who has never experienced it than we can explain light to the blind. This is T.S. Eliot. Thus, everyone has a passion, Karin.
I believe everyone is born with a passion. And I think sometimes what you're born into, you may create a limiting belief about what you can or can't do. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's our parents that might influence that, or peers, or your brothers and sisters. But I believe inside every person, which is why I have such a heart for the underdog. Like when I was a kid, I kind of lied, I stole, I cheated. Like I had my moments. But like any kid, you're not born perfect, you're not born a robot, and you learn. And so, even to this day, when kids get in trouble in school, for example, I have such a heart for them because that doesn't have to determine who they are. But yet, how many times do things that happen to us do we find ourselves feeling like we are the result of the circumstances that happen to us? But deep down inside, underneath that hard shell, underneath that circumstance, that situation, wealth, poverty, I do believe inside every person, there's a seed of the passion of who they were created for, their purpose for being on this earth today. It does exist in each person, I believe.
Thank you, Karin. That's very passionate translation. I am mindful of the fact that when we finish our education, when we are going out to the world and we are there to present something, it's very difficult. So actually, I remember this speech that Oprah Winfrey did at the graduation, and she said, "Your passion in life is to find a job." And that's quite interesting for somebody who has got it all, right? She's very rounded person. She's very passionate at what she does, and she's got a vision for what she wants to do. So how to create that vision for somebody who just graduated and doesn't know what to do? Is it to find a job, or would there be a different advice from Karin?
I think you have to go back to asking yourself what it is that gets you up every day. What is something that gets you excited? And sometimes, Beata, after college, these kids, these college students, they don't know what they want. Even in high school, kids don't even know what they want. So my recommendation at that age to a lot of the parents is have your child do 1,000 different things. Let them volunteer here, let them work at the ice cream shop, let them try a bunch of things, because in trying a lot of things, you will find what you don't like. And the more you realize what you don't like, your eyes will be opened to what you do like. At least that's what happened to me and what I've recommended to parents and what I saw happen in my own life. But if you limit yourself and you think I'm only going to do X, Y, and Z, you might never know if there's something different that you want to do or you might be better at, and you won't know what you're not good at and what you don't like. So I mean, these days, I don't think anybody can just have one job, to tell you the truth. I think you have to be good at a variety of things. And so really put yourself out there, put yourself in different situations and different environments and different areas, so you can really find what resonates with you. And through that, you're going to find what excites you and what charges you. And it's funny because if you played a game with someone and said, if you were a multi-billionaire, what would you do? What would you be? What would you have? And it's interesting, if you just play that game out, you might realize that what excites you the most is giving back to someone or helping someone. And I've heard this, and I believe it to my core, that when you help others, the finances will follow. If you have a heart and a life that is there to serve people, the money will always be there. And so be aware, if you want to step into a job or you think everything has to be only job oriented, go for it, give it 110%. But if you realize along the way, and at some point, it might not be what you're passionate about, reflect and again go inside. What is it that you want to do or leave for those who follow you? And then take those steps and follow whatever it is that is in you, because every one of us has a story. Every one of us has a life that we've lived, that other people, when they hear it, can inspire them, it can encourage them. And so don't diminish who you are and what you bring to every situation, to the work environment, or to the next maybe job application you might have, or the next creative thing that you might create that doesn't even exist yet today.
Yeah, absolutely. Because opportunity is like a bus. There will always be a next one, but be ready to take that bus when it comes. And so, Karin, what is your passion, and do you only have one?
So I, like I said, have a heart for the underdog. So I am an elementary public school principal. When I was an assistant principal 4 years ago, I was given all the bad behavior kids to give them their consequence. And you know what, Beata, what I found? I found that it was more about connecting with those kids than just making sure they had the consequence and got sent on their way. And so I started spending time with them. And so, parents, or if you have kids or you know of your friends who have kids, practice and try first connecting with those kids before you correct them. And when I would invest in them, so Beata, I would take every kid who got in trouble and I would have lunch with them once a week and we'd play Uno. Every kid, kindergarten to fifth grade, loved Uno. It was amazing. The teachers would look at it and be like, why are you rewarding them? And I would have to say, it's an intervention. But you know what, Beata, when I was able to invest that time in those kids, when I had to correct them or they did get in trouble, they actually learned from the situation because we had built that trust and they listened to me. And so for me, it's taking that process I've learned over the years, which I love how you started out about how the base of what you do and all that you do is based in empathy. Because the approach I always use with kids when they're in trouble is very empathetic. I mean, think about it. We all just want to feel loved, wanted, needed. We have a place and we value. But how often do we lose that when you're dealing with a kid maybe that is struggling behaviorally? Or maybe it's a colleague you have a really difficult time getting along with. Maybe it's your boss that you just can't stand X, Y, and Z that they do or say. If you can start with that empathy and you can talk to them with an even tone of voice, what I saw these kids, how I saw them change, Beata, I would give them leadership opportunities. And all of a sudden, they were the tour greeters, and the people in the office saw them as like the mayor of the school instead of sitting in the office being in trouble. So I found my passion by finding something that could put a mirror in front of a kid for them to see a different person than who they were today and what decision they did that was unexpected and wrong or bad. And I had that power to shift that in them. So what is the power that you have inside you that the entire universe is waiting for you to unleash and give back? And for me, now I take that process and I teach it to parents. And I'm in the middle of a 6-week course training parents. And you know what, Beata? They are trying it out. They're bringing back stories of how they were actually able to connect with their kid and hear from their kid what really went on because we used an empathetic approach.
So what is the best or the most difficult example you've gone through of the underdog and how you really felt that's a big achievement? Can you talk about that?
So we had a fifth grader once who got in trouble because they had a big mouth and they would talk back. And the lunch monitor would just tell us horror stories of them not doing anything they said in the cafeteria. The teacher struggled with the very same issue. So he was in the office in trouble all the time, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. And I used this approach with him. And I would say to him, I heard that in the cafeteria, the lunch monitor asked you to do such and such, and you just had to tell her how it was going to be. How do you think she felt? Well, how do you feel now? And they would share that. And then you ask them, what do you think we can do to solve this problem? And they would end up coming up with a problem to solve, which is what we want all of our kids to be able to do for the rest of life. That is a life skill they're going to need in life. And so this process would help them learn to problem solve. And so he was one that I made a tour greeter. And all of a sudden, he used his words and his language and his posture that was getting him in trouble. He was able to flip it, and we found an area where he excelled in that. People would walk in for a school tour and he would be telling them all about the school, all about the teachers, all about the principal, all about, and we were all just amazed and in awe. And so look at how incredible that powerful that was, that we took something that looked not so great and we showed it to even himself. His parents were blown away. Like they were frustrated with oh no, I got another call from school about my kid doing X, Y, and Z. To now, we built on the positive traits that he had, and all of a sudden, people saw him in a different light. He saw himself in a different light, and his misbehaviors started declining because of this reverse. We get a lot of this work from the Leader in Me book by Stephen Covey. If any of you heard of Stephen Covey, he has an outstanding book called Leader in Me. And these were some of the truths and the practices that we pulled from there. And when I read that book, it synced with everything I believed in a kid, to giving them hope, to believing them. Who they are today and the decisions they make does not have to define who they're going to be in their future.
Wow, fantastic recommendation. Thank you so much, Karin. I can think of one stage that I got in trouble for being passionate about books. And I'll tell you a little story. When I was a teenager, before there was a definition about mobbing at school, I was not really feeling comfortable. So I would go into books and read these books to the extent of skipping school and going to a library, pretending that I'm going to school, went to a library and would read for 5 or 8 hours, depending on how long the day was at school. And after reading, I would come back home, and my parents were not aware of that for about 3 months. So what would be advice to my parents or any other parents who would see that somebody got into trouble through passion?
So Beata, that's what I love about this approach, because it's empathetic, right? So we're not going to yell at them. We are not going to talk down to them. I never make a kid feel belittled because I am the adult and you are the kid and you got in trouble. I believe inside every kid, they know what they did wrong, and whether they're showing it or not, they know that they did that wrong, and it's not my job to make them feel worse. So I would have coached your parents and said, you use an even tone of voice. So parents and those listening, when you deal with a situation like that, in the moment, you might get so frustrated and you feel the heat rising and your heart starts racing, right? And you're just going to like pop because you're like, how could this have happened? So I instruct parents to first take a pause, take a deep breath, because when you take that deep breath after being in a very heightened, I call it freaked out state, your brain will be in a different position and thought process than if you had reacted in that moment. So the breath is huge. I teach kids count to 10 before you react or say something when you get upset. And so that's what I would have coached your parents. If for example, that might have gotten them emotionally or heightened emotionally about what happened. And then I would have had them say to you, I noticed that, or I heard, whoever found out when the school finally told them, or they somehow caught on, I heard that, you've been at the library and you haven't been in school, and reading, and I know you're totally passionate about reading. What's up with that? And I teach parents to glean and give that opportunity for the child to share exactly why it is why they did what they did. So Beata, if your parents had approached it that way, and it's a very disarming approach, so it doesn't have that emotion, and usually that's what helps kids feel safe enough to open up about what's really going on. And so it would have been fascinating to hear from you why you actually were in the library all those days long. And right?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was easy peasy. I just felt, I out of place, and I wasn't comfortable at school. So that was a safe place to go into the fantasy world where I could sympathize with Winnetou and, all these great heroes that I read about. But it's definitely a very good approach to take the empathetic approach and listen to what the kid wants to say. And that's also advisable when you're a manager, when you're building a startup, to be in line with your whole management or with your team and be aware of what is happening in their world. Because sometimes we are not robots. We can have worse days and our passion may fade away. So how do you boost your passion when it fades away, when you just feel burnout? What's your take on that?
So 2 things, if I can just step back for a minute, because you said something really, really powerful. You can use this approach with your colleagues. So there are tons of times with my teachers that either I see something or I don't agree with it, or I get frustrated at them. And I love this awesome phrase. Write this question down. It is, help me understand. I noticed you X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. Help me understand. Instead of, why are you doing that? Where is this? Why this? And flip it to whatever it is that is going on between you and your colleague and or you and your boss. Can you help me understand this? Da, 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 da. It's a beautiful question, which opens it up, Ayata, to just really have that collaborative conversation without that emotion and sort of that blaming that can get in there. And so then to tack onto your second question, what was the question? What do you do when your passion's dying out?
Yeah, fading out.
Yeah, so I think that is when your alarm system is telling you inside your body that you need to take time for yourself. You need to unplug and step back, and whatever it is for you. Some people, they need to be out in nature. Other people, they need to unplug their phone. They need to disconnect from technology or whatever it is. And so that self-care piece is huge, because if you're going and giving 100% all the time, you're not taking the time to let your cup be filled, because we can only give when we are full. And so when you're feeling like your passion's waning, or you don't have enough, or you're like, where is it? I lost it. I can't find it. I don't have it anymore. That can be a mental check to yourself, where actually if you check in early, as my friend likes to say, and check in often with how you are internally handling your stress, your energy, your vitality, then you can actually insert those breaks. It could be 3 minutes of just taking a mindful moment or a pause. Sometimes I'll just take a minute in my office, I'll close the door and do a simple breathing activity just to restore my mental state. Or if you can do something in nature or active or read or take a bath, but it's really taking care of your own self so that you can show up and be your best self, right? So this week, think to yourself, what can I do for myself to take care of me so that I can show up to be my best for my family, for my coworkers, for my work, for my job, for my passion, for my next adventure in this life.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to refill our cups and relax and sit down, but also give us a little heart, give a like, something that will make us passionate about delivering positivity hack. I know that you are setting up Educational Impact Academy. Can you tell us about that project, please?
Yes. So, like I told you, I have done this collaborative solving process approach with my students for nearly a decade now. And over my years of experience, I have seen it literally create a 180 for these kids who were sometimes some of the worst behaving kids in the school, and turn out to have positive characteristics and traits that we were amplifying, that changed how people saw them in a positive way. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to share this with more educators and more parents, because if it was something I was able to learn through practicing it and hearing it from Dr. Stuart Ablon, who has his Think Kids program out of Harvard. It's the number one psychiatry department in the entire US. He is the one I learned these tools from. And if I found myself learning them and using them and over time having success, I wanted to give that to parents, because Beata, I had so many parents feeling helpless. One of them didn't even show up to the parent night at school because their kid had stabbed the other kid in the class. Why? Parents don't have to feel alone. And I wanted to be someone to be here to support, to encourage them, to help them not beat themselves up. You are not a reflection of your kid, but how often do we feel like that? And where is that holding us back to anything that we want to do or step out with in life? And so to teach these parents this process is so empowering. So now a parent could feel like they can really get to the root of why their kid's doing what they're doing. Or if they're having a meltdown, you mean I can learn some tools to actually take care of myself in the moment and help my kid ultimately? Not everybody is in a position where they can have a therapist for their child or see a psychologist, and they all have their place. But how beautiful and how empowering it is. And so that's what I'm on a mission to share this learning with as many parents or educators who are looking for something quick. Give it to me, teach it to me, something I can try and implement this week and see a positive change from. And that's what I do in this course. So I've done a 6-week live course I'm in the middle of right now. We're going to have it as a stationary course. You can purchase it online if you want to watch it on your own time. And then I also do one-on-one coaching to help parents with any of the struggles that they have facing their kids, or even sometimes it is something personal that is a reflection coming out in your kids of what's going on. And so we do some of that internal work one-on-one. And then again, like I said, in this course.
That's beautiful, because you mentioned at the start of the show that sometimes people have to have 2 jobs, and mothers are quite often dealing with many jobs, including looking after the household. So, and sometimes not just one kid. So they have to spread thin and make sure that they also fill that cup with energy again to have 100% full. So where would you start as a burnout parent to look into what's available, what tools are available, and how do you start? Is it available on your website, or is there some very quick fix that you recommend doing?
So I'll give you 2 things. First, if you want to go to my website, www.educationalimpactacademy.com, and I'm sure Beata's going to put that link for you somewhere right on that front page. If you put your email in, you'll see that putting your email in gives you my free video series of 3 steps to happy, healthy kids. And I walk you through this process so you can watch it on your own time. You can take notes. If you love what you're hearing here, you're going to love that free video series for you. And then that'll get you in my email chain, where weekly I'll send you emails to help inspire you. I'll share with you my Momnificent podcasts that come out with the interviews available, and you'll hear of any upcoming trainings that you might be interested in, to stay linked together to support you and encourage you. You do not have to feel helpless any longer, and there's no judgment here. The other thing parents can do is the next time your colleague, your spouse, your child, your boss makes you feel upset, frustrated, you feel that heat rising, you're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot take that, or I can't stand that. Just remember, take 3 deep breaths before you say anything, before you do anything. Take 3 deep breaths and see if that doesn't put you, like I said, in a different state of mind to have a different reaction and response than if you had shot the first thing that was coming to your mind in that moment of that intense frustration or that intense feeling. So just insert a pause for me and insert 3 deep breaths and see what that doesn't change and turn around for you.
Fantastic. Let's take the positive approach and look at how children are developing. Did you see change of passion, or how passion is developing through ages? Can you give us some examples?
So it's interesting because I really love working with kids. And I always said that I don't think I would ever go to middle or high school, because I think they're having a harder time as they're figuring out who they are in those stages and ages. And I'm a kid at heart. As you can tell, I'm very positive. I have a very positive personality and nature, and I always see the glass half full. I'm always spinning something so someone can see it in a more positive light. And someone said to me once, it's like being a cork in the ocean, Beata, and no matter what gets thrown at you at life that beats and tears you down. I mean, I've been through some difficult things in my life, and no matter how far down I felt I went, I have been like that cork. And I'm speaking this to each of you listening right now. You are that cork in the ocean. No matter what's hitting you right now, making you feel overwhelmed, stressed, you can't, or just down in the dumps, you're a cork, and you're going to pop right back up again to the top. So maybe just be encouraged with that today, that the life and circumstances around you aren't going to keep you down. You are going to rise to the top. And So I tend to see kids at a younger age, Beata, in elementary school, like 5 to 12 years old. I see that spark in them a little bit more. You see that laughter come out easily. I mean, when they researched how many times a kid laughs in a day, it was like a crazy like amount of number. And you ask an adult how many times they really laughed, like from their gut, laughed hard, and we hardly do it a couple times a day or 2 days. So I think the younger the kids are, you see that excitement and that excitement for life in them, and we want to keep that. So especially when kids do something wrong or they get in trouble, it starts clouding that, and then you kind of can see it impacting their self-esteem and their confidence, and we don't want that, right? We want to keep them, um, their incredible creativity that they're going to contribute to the world. We want to continue fostering that, and that's why some of the things that I've taught you today is what keeps those kids coming up and being who they were really created to be, and not turn into something that somebody said something or did something that hid that passion inside of them.
That's a very strong point you made, because I wanted to go back to some of the findings of creativity test developed by George Land in 1968. He gave a 16-year-old creativity, 16-year creativity test. The same was tested on the same group. And when they started to 5 years of age, 98 scored at creative genius level. 5 years later, only 30% of the same group of children scored at the same level. And again, 5 years later, only 12% scored when the same test was administered to adults. It was found that only 2% scored at this genius level. The drop of creativity in a period of 10 years is 86%, which is really shocking. According to the study, our creativity is drained by our education. So, Karin, is our education lagging in creative tasks? How can we tackle that?
Yes, Beata, I do think that the systems and the curriculums that our schools are implementing do not provide for that level of thought and creativity that is needed. For example, I just had Doug Patton on my Momnificent show. He wrote the book Conquering the Chaos of Creativity. It just published this year. A local university called him up and said, I need your book to be taught as a course because I've got kids in STEM classes and they can't create. They have a block. They can't come. They can't be creative. They can't think on their own. And so they're finding the problem at college level. But then, Beata, it begs us to ask, where is the root and where should we be teaching it? So now a company in the UK is working with Doug Patton to start creating programs for kids in elementary school. And Doug was so kind to go on a Zoom with two of my students here at my school and my talented and gifted teacher. And he did an activity with them that caused them and created a situation where they could actually problem solve and create something and let their imagination go wild. And if you, I highly recommend this book. It's a 600-page book, so it's a pretty big book, but it's called Conquering the Chaos of Creativity. And it is just completely inspiring. And I think it might inspire you if you pick it up and check it out for your own self, to be creative. So I'm right there with you, Beata. I think there's a lot to say with kids having that at such a young age, and they're losing it as we're getting older.
And that's the perfect moment to recommend you to check our positivity hack delivered with Marta Zucker, which was delivered and is available on our website. It was about creativity in Silicon Valley, and there is a test on creativity, so you can check how creative you are. I had about 80-something% of creative brain. I struggled. I mean, my husband had about 92%, so we were, kind of jealous of that. But definitely challenging your brain with some creative tasks boosts creativity and definitely helps with passion. Don't you think so?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's needed. And I'm telling you, he has such nuggets in this book, Beata. I can't get over how good it is. I'm really been inspired by it lately. And now I'm working with kids to find out ways we can create 15-minute opportunities of creative problem solving within our week so that kids actually have this practice. They need it. Our world needs it to bring the next ingenuity across. They've got to be practicing this.
Well, is there, my husband just corrected me, 94% and a bit, please, he says. So anyway, check your score and but stay with us for a moment, and maybe you can comment and tell us what is your passion, what is your creative power. Please leave a comment, ask a question to Dr. Karin, or go to her website after this show to show your token of appreciation, because we need that from you, dear audience, because we are delivering positivity hacks here. Karin, is passion for a project or pursuit a case of love or being bowled over at first sight?
Can you repeat that?
Is passion for a project or pursuit a case of love or being bowled over at first sight? Does it take time?
You know, it probably takes time, but I think it just takes time sometimes to discover it because I think it was always there.
Great. Let's stop with that. You mentioned challenging children. Is the aim in challenging children to push them early to a particular specialty or just maximize their potential?
Yeah, I think it's so important for kids to find on their own what they love. And parents who are listening, I want you to be really cautious because so many times we have our kids doing activities and doing interests that we're excited about. And so take your time to find out what your child is interested in or let them try things like I said earlier to then realize what they don't like. And even if it's something different to you that you don't doesn't excite you or doesn't get you going or does you don't think that's what your kid might like, if it's something that they're interested in, foster it, give them opportunities and let them spread their own wings and find their own interests and be cautious that it could be different than what you're used to, but it is what's best for them.
You mentioned two books, Karin. You mentioned Doug Patton and Stephen Covey. Are these books the ones that you thought to yourself, gosh, I could read it when I started my history with passion?
Yes. So the Doug Patton's book is almost like an encyclopedia. So there's a lot there. You might have to start it and come back to it. The Leader in Me is just a beautiful way of how you can teach kids some really good skills in life that they will need for the rest of their life, and also flip how you see your child or a coworker who might be struggling. And you could actually change. Like I said, you put that mirror in front of them and they get to see something of who maybe they don't see at the moment, of who they can become. And I'm a really big believer of the way you treat people is how they actually react and respond to you. The way you treat them is how they show up. If you treat people with lack of respect, don't be surprised that they are disrespectful. But if you treat people like they have the best intentions, their good intentions come out. They are like mirrors of us. And parents listening, your kids are mirrors of you. And actually, me as a principal, my staff is a mirror of me. And so I watch how I interact and how I engage each and every moment.
So your website is now a income, or is it also a way of promoting your preaching?
So my website just hosts all the information and the content. And then eventually there's going to be my first course is going to be there, like an evergreen course that you could take or buy and use for free. But my podcast is where you can hear our interviews weekly, and we've actually moved to bi-weekly interviews. And then my course, I'm gonna run this parent course again starting in January for parents to participate in for a fee. Yes.
Well, I hope it goes well. What advice would you give to other females to help their career or to start an entrepreneurial journey?
Don't give up on your thought or your dream. When you have an inspired thought, act on it. If it scares you, that's a good thing. But step out and do something different than what you're doing today. You want a different result, you got to do something different. And as scary and as nerve-wracking as it might be, take a step and do something you love that you're passionate about, and you will be amazed at the doors that are going to start opening up in front of you. So don't be afraid. Fear is just a thought. Take that thought, put it on the ground, stomp on it, and step out and do something new. Try something that you had a thought to do, but something held you back. Step out and do that. Tackle that. You are amazing. You are incredible. You have all the resources inside of you right now to do everything you want to do. Tell yourself that when you wake up in the morning, and go make a difference and enjoy it and be inspired. And I'm so excited to hear the passions that you are going to create and live.
Amen, sister. Karin, we all have got friends or family members who are going to say, well, that will never work. What would be your advice how to still keep that energy, that passion to go for what you truly believe?
So if somebody says, well, that'll never work, or I could never do that, I always ask them, who told you that? When did you start believing that? Because all of those are beliefs that came from a decision at some point in our life. And then you could always private message me and I can work with you to get rid of that belief, because there's a real process to release yourselves from those beliefs, because all they are is just a false belief that you decided at some point because of something that happened to you in your life. And you can go back and you can shift your perspective on that to release you to actually step out and do what you want to do and be and become who you really want to be and live the life that you want. You can create the life of your dreams, and it can happen. It can start happening today. So whatever those thoughts are that people are saying, I say, take them, throw them on the floor, stomp on them. That's not who you are. That's not who you have to be. And you might have to change your friends. You might have to turn off that person from calling you. You might have to say no to some things that really hurt, but surround yourself with the people who will believe in you and believe in the possibilities, because they exist, and they exist in you right now, today.
Very passionate speech, Karin. I wonder whether you had a doubt in your heart when you started shifting from very steady job and going into education.
Yes, I mean, Beata, I'm in it right now because I'm hoping to do this coaching full time and help parents and step away from my role as a principal. And yes, it's scary. Yes, I have those thoughts that I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Is it going to work? Will I still be supported? But those are the thoughts that I'm telling you right now. I'm recognizing, but I know that I can go back and be like, whoa, when did I first think that thought? When did I first believe that? And I've just been through a whole coaching process that I do on myself, and then now I'm doing with others and with mothers, because we can actually let go of those beliefs to really let us live the life that we want. And when I start talking about this stuff, I get so inspired. You can see it. I get so energetic. Like, this is what I was created for. This is my passion. And yes, I've done what I've done for the period of my life that I know it was there for. And so I'm excited for this next step.
How often do you have to refill your cup?
Once a day, at least once a week. Sometimes I'll get a massage. Sometimes I literally will come into my office, shut the door, and do my breathing breaths to get myself centered again. And I model it for my staff so they can see how important it is, because there's a lot of people, and I struggle with those thoughts myself. I don't have time for that. Well, I don't have time for that. No, this is as important as a conference call on your calendar. Recharging your battery is as important as a meeting that is on your calendar, and that's how you have to treat it. And I'm going to challenge you today to start treating your self-care as important as an important business call with your boss or a client.
That's fabulous news. I wish you every success. We are coming close to the end of our show, and that's a perfect time to ask you a question. your favorite life lesson quote and how did it change you?
So I love the quote of remain sweet no matter what happens. And it kind of goes back to that cork picture that no matter what I faced in life, as difficult and as hard and as dark as it was on certain days, I chose and I challenge you to choose today to remain sweet no matter what happens to you. And it's a quote and a belief that has carried me through, which is probably why it has kept me being the positive and optimistic person that I continue to be to this day.
And I wish it to everyone in our audience or whoever is watching us at this stage. Can you tell us what would be the person you would like to invite if the pandemic was over and you could travel anywhere in the world and invite any person in the world? Who would it be and where would you go to?
Do I get to go back in time?
Absolutely.
Okay. So my person is Mother Teresa because I am so fascinated when I have read books about her. She has really stopped me dead in my tracks to really think about why I'm doing what I'm doing. And she even came to the US and she said, it's not poverty in the US that's the problem. It was our poverty in our thinking. It was our poverty in our lack of ability to connect and have compassion for others. And she really stops me dead in my tracks. So, where would I go anywhere in the world? Maybe I would go to Greece, overlooking the beautiful blue water, and I would love to ask her, "What's one thing you would say to me? Here's my life. What's one word of advice would you give me?" Because everything she said, it has always made me just come back to my knees and say, "How am I giving? How am I making a difference? What can I do to make someone else's life better today? Whose life can I make happy by what I say or what I do or how I help?" And 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 every time I have a bad moment, I think to myself, okay, what can I do for someone right now? Because it always makes me feel better.
Beautiful. Develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow. Anthony J. D'Angelo. How do you keep developing your passion and how do you keep afloat, especially given the fact that you had to change uh, when the pandemic started? You couldn't have face-to-face interaction with kids.
So the number one thing that has helped me handle all of my stress and keep me going and keep me inspired and passionate is my own meditation practice. So I start every morning. I try to fit in the evening before I go to bed. If not, it's the first thing I do in the morning. I sit calm, I sit still, I just let my mind rest. And it brings me to that place of such a clear and calmness in the midst of all the stress or anxiety or the thoughts about the day or this parent or the teacher or the kid. It helps center me every morning before I embark on that day's mission. And when I need to, I just come back to those breaths and it brings me right back to that moment. And I find myself able to have the energy that I need to make a difference and get to the end of the day and be like, that was so worth it. That was a day worth living.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this beautiful story and sharing your knowledge, your passion, your vision for education, for children, for your own business. And that's it from episode 39 of PhD. Thanks to our guest, Dr. Karin Jakubowski. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hug delivered, follow Women on It and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. Next week, remember that we are going to join live again and we are going to talk how to use TikTok to find your customers. Our guest will be Kinya Kelly. Tell people and they may forget. Show them, they may remember, but involve them and they will understand. That's Confucius. He wasn't a teacher, but definitely it applies to many streams of our life. When you focus on the positives, positives get more positive. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. Thank you so much for this beautiful story, Karin, for telling us how to refill our cups. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude, as Maya Angelou said. And today is your day to hack the future. Hack the positivity you want. Thank you. Yay!
I always get excited at the end of a call.
Okay, we've been muted. We have an error. Can't end. All right.